Welcome everyone to the Citizens Climate Lobby Canada Lobby Bootcamp, and bonus points if you know what the Roman numeral CCCL stands for. Anyone? What number is that?
350.
350. Excellent. So yeah, we're like going for 350 here. And it's kind of cool that if you say Canada Citizens Climate Lobby, it's that acronym. Okay. So our solution to climate change is democracy. So thank you for being on the team. And this is us literally almost 4 years ago in 2018. And you don't have to know all these details, and I will give you the slides afterwards. But if you want them on hand, you can look at the slides, or you can, look at this review this video, and here they are in case a member of parliament asks. But we're big, we're real big. I mean, think about it. All these people building political will locally and with evidence-based policies and engaging in democracy in such a lovely way. This is pretty impressive. And we are living in the dream of a remarkable human being, a dream master. His name was Marshall Saunders. I wish I could talk to you about him for hours. He passed away in December 2019, but he believed in you and I, and that ordinary people like us would just have to educate ourselves, give up our hopelessness, and gain the skills to be effective with our government. And we have been. Proof is in the pudding. Look at Canada's carbon pricing policy, and Marshall was so proud of us. So our mission is to build the political will for a livable world, and we do this by empowering people to have breakthroughs in their personal and political power. We're pretty darn focused here at Citizens Climate Lobby Canada. And as we get deeper and deeper into building this political will, it gets wonkier and wonkier. Give yourself that space to learn this stuff and know that you have lots of supports around you. Once upon a time, it was really easy to lobby for carbon fee and dividend because we just had to ask the government to put a fee on pollution and give the money back to the people. Border carbon adjustments. But now we have to dig down into the weeds, and we have to help you all get organized and support you and lobby your parliamentarians and build political will for improvements to the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And we do some side lobbying, things that we know that will support the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, not being dissolved, or at least building political will so that if another government comes along, there's still policies pushing forward. So we have in the past, we really pushed for climate accountability acts, and we're open to other things as well. Our focus is on this. We do support many other actions through our things that we do, like signing online petitions, signing on to certain events, and through our education. But our focus on lobbying is mostly for improvements to the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And we've been meeting monthly and providing our volunteers with actions since September 2010, never missing a month. Our one and only rule is respect, admiration, and gratitude for service, for each other and for the politicians and everyone we work with. If you did the full training, the climate advocate training, we take about 10 minutes to go through each of these values. And it's a great exercise to read them out loud, and then people identify which one speaks to them. But we don't have time for that today. But I do want you to know that these core values that we have really ground us. And if you continue with us, you'll get deeper training on this, or you can do this with your own group, or just read them yourself. Just look for our values at Citizens Climate Lobby online. And we don't just lobby, we build, our local groups, and we do volunteer development, and we do media and grass tops and grassroots. And this all supports the local building of political will as we, lobby our own parliamentarians for evidence-based carbon pricing policies. I just put this slide here. I'm not going to go over it, but it will be there for reference for you if you want to look back and reflect on the history that we've had. But suffice to say, there's been a lot of engagement by the government in the build up to the federal carbon pricing policy. Our dividends began and they were returned before the fees began. And then twice this carbon pricing policy has passed through an election, and we don't anticipate another election until 2025. So we have 3 years approximately to keep building political will for this carbon pricing policy. So there are 3 ways to price carbon pollution. And within the Canadian carbon pricing policy, you can either have the backstop policy, which the government imposes on the provinces that do not have adequate carbon pricing, or you could have your own carbon pricing policy. So Quebec has cap and trade, and so did Nova Scotia. So it looks like they're going to get the backstop policy too. That will start in January. And so cap and trade, government puts a cap on emissions. If you go over, you have to trade. If you're under, you trade. And so it is a way to price pollution directly. And there can be offsets. And then there's a carbon tax. And this is what Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, BC, and the carbon tax and the territories have. And a carbon tax is the money, the government puts a price on pollution from greenhouse gases, and then takes that money. And most of the money is returned back to the people in BC, but some of it goes to programming now. So technically, BC is no longer called a carbon fee and dividend or climate income policy. And there are advantages and disadvantages to both of these. And what we advocate for is climate income, carbon fee and dividend. It's also known by, and it is pretty much what we're starting to see in the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, that should say 2018, sorry. And this is the backstop policy, and it applies to Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and most likely in Nova Scotia in 2023. And we're kind of wondering what's going to happen with New Brunswick as well. So let's review it. The government, starting in 2018, put a fee on carbon pollution starting at $20 a ton. It's going up at $15 a ton, all the way up to 2030 now, which is great. 90% of the money is being returned back to us. And just this July, we got our first dividend checks. That's something we've been lobbying for years. Very exciting day. And the last component to maintain competitiveness in our emissions-intensive trade-exposed industries like cement, steel, even oil and gas, chemicals, large manufacturing, Canada is engaging with the European Union and Chile on carbon border adjustment mechanisms. So basically, those are a fee on pollution from countries that do not have the equivalent carbon pricing policy. And the EU is going to have their CBAMs go into motion starting in 2025. I'll do one more slide about its carbon pricing policy, and then I'll stop for questions. So there are 2 components to Canada's backstop policy. The part that you see with the check is called the fuel consumption tax or fee. And you don't see that. It's applied at the point of entry into the economy or at the wellhead or the coal mine. And it's embedded into the cost of everything. And 90% of those fees collected are returned to households. The other 10% goes to the MUSH industries, which are municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals. 80% of us come out ahead. Rural and remote households get a bonus, and Canadian farms have a separate fee and rebate system for fuels. But for the emissions-intensive trade-exposed industries, because we don't currently have border carbon adjustment mechanisms, industries that are over $10,000 a ton, 10,000 tons of CO2 can opt into it, or they can pay the fuel charge. And if you're over 50,000 tons, you're automatically put into it. And so what it is, it's like cap and trade, but without a cap. And they pay less a fuel charge than others. And it sends a market signal, but they're not paying a full carbon price. And if they were fully paying the carbon price and there was border carbon adjustment mechanisms, we'd see a much steeper decrease in greenhouse gas emissions. But currently, this is what our carbon pricing system, the GHG's emitted reductions that are anticipated from it out to 2022. We don't know if that's actually happened because it's going to take a couple of years to get that data, but this is the projected decrease, and without it, our emissions would have gone up. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and answer any questions you may have. And no question is dumb. I'm a former teacher. No question is silly. So don't be shy.
I have a little question about one of the points in those slides. It said something like 80% of us come out ahead. And I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on what that means.
Okay. And I will a little bit later too. Okay. So for when we get the rebate and compared to what we pay in the carbon price, pollution price, 80% of the households are actually coming out ahead than compared to what they paid.
And what's distinguishing between the quote unquote getting ahead versus not? Like which households are losing money by this?
They're mostly the richest 20%. Okay. Who can afford that $120 more a year they're paying for what they're getting back.
Gotcha. So, okay.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Thank you.
Kathy, yep. I thought that it goes as 80% are either breaking even or getting ahead.
Yeah, okay. Technically, yeah, that's probably how it should be said. Thank you, Anita. Former English teacher. There you go.
Science. Science. Good.
You were a science teacher, but your English is so impeccable. Like every word that comes out of you is just like bang on. Any other? Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Hey, that was a really, really good question. I just wanted to add one thing that helps me to think about it. So I think of it as everybody gets the same amount back. So everyone gets the same amount deposited into your bank account from the government, but not all of us pay the same. So if I have multiple homes and multiple big gas guzzling vehicles, then I probably pay more in carbon tax than I get back in income. But if I live like a regular lifestyle or even a more green lifestyle, I'm not paying very much, and yet I still get the same amount. So it's a progressive like tax and dividend program. Mm-hmm. If that helps. That helps me.
That was very understandable. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And that was a great question. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yesterday was the last day for submissions to the for their capping the emissions in the oil and gas industry. And so I spent a lot of time this week working on that. But yeah, your explanation of the current output-based plan pricing is was good. I'm just wondering. Well, I guess that is one of the questions that was in this consultation. How putting a cap specifically on the oil and gas industry is going to affect what's already in place. But I think the idea is this going to be any new policies will be on top of what's already existing.
Yeah, it'll be on top of it. And we'll see how this goes. Because I think, yeah, in this, it's very technical and it's a moving target. So hold on to your seats. We don't know what's happening. We're in the fog. Thanks, everyone, for joining us in the fog. Isn't this fun? Okay. We literally are in a fog. We don't know. It'll get a lot clearer next year. It's going to be a lot more fun next year, but it's fun in the fog too. Anyone else? All right. So it will save lives. Cutting this pollution will save lives. And the best part is most low and middle income people will financially come out ahead or break even. We get money in our pocket. Wasn't that so exciting to get that check in July? Oh, sorry, BC, you didn't get one. Sorry. Okay, but you should ask for one in BC. You should get like little checks and not just income tax shifting, because most people don't know they're getting it. You know what? And honestly, there was BC staffers to a prominent BC politician did not know they got the money back. So maybe a check or a direct deposit in BC is in the order as well. Okay, so this was a great question by Carrie. What do you mean by coming out ahead? This parliamentary budget office data shows that. And when I flippantly said, yeah, even those people that only have to pay more than $200 more a year, they're in the highest income here. And this is people making like over $100,000 a year, and they're paying $200 more a year. Okay. And why is that? Why is that? And I think these two graphs here and then this Nature article explains it all. People who are richer tend to have much higher carbon footprints. So that pulls up the average. So when you look at the G20 countries for which there is data, the top 10% of earners have a much higher carbon footprint than average. And the bottom 50% and bottom 40% have a much lower. And that's why most households come out ahead or break even. And further studies were done last year, and it was published as a policy brief in Nature. And they found that if countries adopt a uniform global carbon price and then return the revenues to their citizens on an equal per capita basis, like we have with Canada's backstop policy, it will be possible to meet a 2-degree target while increasing well-being, reducing inequality, and alleviating poverty. So this is great. This is fantastic. And yeah, it's not 1.5C. So we do need other policies. We know carbon pricing alone is not going to get us to 1.5C. We all have to focus. And speaking of Indigenous, I saw Buffy St. Marie's movie Carry It On at the local film festival. And, she had some advice for activists. And she said, sometimes activists try to ask for everything all at once and they get really disappointed. Just ask for something little that people will like and want, and then they'll be happy when they get it. And I was like, wow, that's basically CCL to a core. So thanks for focusing on that little thing. And it's what people want and it's what people need. And we're leading the world, and so many people around the world admire the work you're doing. And I get to hear that when I leave Canada. So thank you, everyone. And it's the single most powerful tool we have to get to net zero by 2050. So at our event on the 14th of October, we're going to be playing with Drew Jones and the team at MIT Climate Interactive and our politicians. And they're going to be playing with the On-Roads Policy Simulator. And here's like a static presentation, but Drew will be doing it live with the help of his team and the help of us and politicians asking questions. But we looked at the On-Roads Policy Simulator, the impact of removing fossil fuel subsidies, removing subsidizing clean energy, maximizing tree growth and carbon pricing, and then set it to see what happens to the global primary sources of energy, air pollution, and global temperatures. So you're like, oh, that's way too busy. Okay, let's focus in on each portion of it. So right here is the global sources of primary energy. Here is the air pollution, and that's just a particle. Here's the global temperatures. And here's all the things that he can toggle, or you can toggle when you're on roads, and you can get really deep and really wonky by playing with these 3 little dots in here. And I'm not trained, so I don't know how to do it. And I deeply admire people who can. So I got one of my friends to do it for me. So we looked at the impact of removing all fossil fuel subsidies, which is kind of like about $5, $10 a ton. Positive sort of carbon pollution price, like negative carbon pricing pollution. That means it's going the other way. And it does very little to to change behaviors or reduce temperature, and it slightly increases air quality, but only by a little bit. And you're like, why is that? And that's because it's such a small amount of money that the fossil fuel companies are making. They'll just pass the cost on to the consumer anyways, and they'll barely notice it, and they'll just keep consuming it. But that being said, these subsidies should be removed because we shouldn't be funding our extinction. And this money could be better spent on other things. So totally support removing fossil fuel subsidies. What about maximizing clean energy? So they could subsidize clean energy to a great degree, and it will change the patterns here. It's great, but you only get 0.4 degrees reduction in temperature, and really not that much reduction in air quality, or and why is that? Is because this is not de-incentivizing energy use. And in fact, if you don't do this correctly, you could actually be subsidizing the habits of the rich. So totally support clean energy subsidies as long as they're directed in such a way that it leads to more equity, more human rights, and gender justice. But do note that subsidizing clean energy can't get us remotely close to the 1.5C planet that we need so desperately. What about maximizing tree growth? So we could maximize, reforestation and stopped, chopping down trees. You don't see obviously you're not going to see any change in fossil fuel patterns, and barely any change in air quality, because most of these trees will be grown outside of the centers where people live. And you see only 0.2 degrees change. Now, again, we must maximize tree growth as much as possible on this planet for biodiversity, for adaptation, for keeping the temperatures down, for cleaning our water. But note what it does. And lastly, when we maximize carbon pricing with the On-Roads Policy Simulator out to 2100, you see that it reduces the temperature by 1 degree. So that's great. And that means we need other policies too, but we focus on carbon pricing. And giving the money back to the people will reduce income inequality and increase everybody's well-being. So what's going to happen on this day? So the first thing I need to do is to get you all to join the WhatsApp group if you think you're going to be there. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I have to do this anyways. And make sure that you join the WhatsApp group. So we're going to have a WhatsApp group going on behind the scenes. And my phone's not going to open because my phone is dead. No, it's not. It is. Hold on. Okay. So there's a WhatsApp group that has been created for this event. Oh, it's being slow. Sorry about that. Just take a breath. And I don't think it's going to load. I apologize. I'm having a technical issue. I'm going to let that one go. So there is a WhatsApp chat group. Look in the emails for it. But if you're there that day, we're going to have a WhatsApp chat group behind the scenes. And you can load WhatsApp chat onto your desktop. Mine's not loading right now because, hey, the tech gods are not behaving right now. And you can, oh, there it is. I'll just show you what you see behind the scenes on WhatsApp chat. So if you running into any problems, or you have any questions, or you just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, we have created a WhatsApp chat group for this event, and it is, okay. And I've lost it again. There we go. So you can join this WhatsApp chat. You can load it up onto your computer. as well. You don't have to just do it up on your phone. And I'll put the chat in the link. So if you know you're going to be there that day, please try to join this WhatsApp chat. It's not mandatory, but it's really helpful if you're in the WhatsApp chat, troubleshooting together. Any questions? Okay. Now I'm going to go to the web page, just quickly review what's going to happen that day. So we're all going to join. You're going to join early. You'll join 15 minutes early. We're going to do some welcome and land acknowledgements. There may or may not be a special presentation, so I'm still working on that. Artists are complicated to work with, and they take time to decide things. And then Drew Jones and his team at MIT Climate Interactive will present the On-Roads Policy Simulator. And then we will either go into breakout rooms, and you can talk with your own reps and talk policy, or you can continue to explore On-Roads together, and you don't have to come back to plenary. Please note that On-Roads cannot lobby for policy. So if you're going to lobby, then On-Roads won't join you. But if you just want to keep exploring On-Roads with your members, with your parliamentarians, then we will put you in a group. Well, we'll make sure that On-Roads knows which groups to go into. And what is happening behind the scenes is we're developing this spreadsheet that ultimately will have names for each of these breakout rooms and who's going to go where, and you'll be able to figure that out. But we won't know who's going where and what the breakout rooms will be until a couple days before the event. So any questions?
Any tips to get them to come?
Any tips? Okay, we'll talk about that shortly. That's a great one, though. It's a great one. We will talk about that. All right. So I'm going to view slideshow. Very quickly. Most of you have probably already started inviting, but do be sure to get to know your MP or your parliamentarian, and find something that you can appreciate them for. Search their websites, their social media, their Hansard, and be sure to receive their alerts from openparliament.ca, and especially get to know the staffers. They're your first line of defense, so learn to, say their name when you're talking to them, like, hey, Haley, how you doing? It makes them feel so important, and they are important. That they're the gatekeepers for their parliamentarians. So that's one tip. Get to know the parliamentarian. Make sure you phone and then email. And if need be, leave a voicemail and follow it up with an email. If you're a constituent, make sure they know you're a constituent, and you should be a constituent, because at CCL, we really only lobby our own MPs or our own parliamentarians. Sorry, I have to say parliamentarian. And be sure, because every province has a different name for provincial parliamentarians. So we're just going to say parliamentarians. Okay, so be sure to mention you're with us because we have clout. Pro tip, give the parliamentarian or the staffer a deadline to respond. That's one of the pro tips. And there will be more action sheets coming out on Monday, and giving you even more tips on inviting them. So don't give up. Work with the parliamentarian, give them a deadline. And then if they don't want to come to this event, offer them the option to meet at a later time, or a staffer can come. And so any other things about securing the appointment before we move on?
I have a quick question. There's other people in my I forget what it's called, but local group that I know are going to be reaching out. Is there value in having multiple people reach out to parliamentarians, or if you already know somebody is on it that has a better relationship, just
I think it's best just to have one person be that person, but maybe I should add it to this. I should do another pro tip. Identify other constituents that will be with you. So the more constituents they know will be in the room, more likely they are to attend. So if you're intending to be there that day, make sure that your group leader knows that. Okay, Dominic?
Great, thank you.
And I do believe your group leader is Alex, and Mona Forte, you're in the exact same riding as her, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, or you can ask Dominic, you can ask if you can help with securing this appointment, see if she needs any help.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe having a different person asking is not a bad idea. But your group has to decide that yourself. I don't determine those things. And that's a great suggestion. Anyone else? Okay, and there's just a general outline on how to do that. There'll be scripts, and I'm not going to do that. But, do ponder this. Just know that when you do the deeper training, we go into discussion, and basically we're not experts, we're citizens, and we're way more powerful than experts because our politicians need to hear from us. And you should also know you don't have to be an expert. Your stories mean the world. Okay, and I wanted to just highlight a problem that we kind of ran into in the last year. Because we're not meeting personally anymore, we're having these big lobbying events. There's not much of an opportunity to collect right now afterwards and say, oh, I don't think you should do that, because that's like, too much work for everyone. So occasionally parliaments request something that's not always suitable for the group to conduct alone or should be done in the first place. So, suggestions they make, like, why don't you do a parliamentary petition? And like, those are huge amounts of work. Or, why don't you do this research? And you got to be like, that's your job. So if you're, come back to the group, and if you're not quite sure if you should do something, if it seems like you're going to need the support of national office, and we don't have any paid staff, so just be careful what you promise to do. And we do parliamentary petitions, and we do possibly have one in the docket, which some people at CCL have already agreed to do, but we'll be doing that in the new year, and they're a lot of work. So just be mindful of what you can and cannot do when a parliamentarian makes a request of you. There's follow-up that you can do, like securing the next meeting, getting some basic research done, but be careful of your time. And lastly, how we work with politicians is we ask motivational interviewing questions to find common ground. So we ask them who, what, where, when questions, and we avoid why questions, and we want to get them talking. So in a moment, we're going to take a look at our see, this is overwhelming. Take a breath, everybody. So what you're going to do beforehand is figure out what will be your lobbying ask. So I know my lobbying ask with my MPs, my parliamentarians, is I am still really super concerned about dust flaring. And at this moment, we are actually trying to figure out what to do. And I just want to have one more discussion with them, because we've been lobbying them for a year now for this, and it got really confusing, and I just want them to know what we're doing next. But the rest of these asks are really good. So we want to move gas-powered electricity from the output pricing system into the fuel charge section of the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. That's a very wonky ask, and this is probably best for federal, best for Ontario, best for Alberta, not so much great for Manitoba, British Columbia, and Quebec, because they have mostly hydro, so this doesn't really apply to them. But the other provinces, this whole thing about how gas-powered electricity gets a free pass and goes into the output-based carbon pricing system when it's not trade exposed nor emissions intensive is ridiculous. And it's actually in many of the provinces where it's being designed as such, it's not incentivizing clean energy production, and we have evidence for that. So, and then, you're going to decide beforehand what you're going to do. Some of you are going to want to focus on what we're now going to call carbon border adjustment mechanisms, formerly known as border carbon adjustments. And we want them to be harmonized. And this is why Canada's carbon pricing policies must be harmonized. We want to see an appropriate rate of increasing the price past 2030. We want all measurable GHGs to be included in the inventory. We want to request a parliamentary budget and future reports on federal pricing take into account the economic, health, and environmental costs of climate change and economic benefits of the clean energy economy. And data just came out this week again on that. And we want them to educate citizens about the rebates they receive in the provinces where they get them. And we do support an emissions cap. And this is a big reason why, is a cap is necessary to maintain geographical and sectoral balance. So take a breath. No, what you're going to do is, like, with your group, figure out which one you think is most appropriate to lobby for. And some of you might be like, no, I just want to keep exploring on-roads with my parliamentarians. And that's totally cool too. So any questions? And then you just, whatever you lobby them for, you ask these motivational interviewing questions.
Sorry, just to be clear. So the one at the end, the cap had asking for a cap. Would you not pick that as one of yours because it's not really a bullet point?
It's so outside the carbon pricing that we just actually put it like separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it comes up, you talk about it, I guess. Okay.
Well, they should know that we support that. And, you know, it's hard to lobby for unless you're an expert. So you're welcome to lobby for it. And we can make it a bullet point. I don't even think it's going to be presented like this. We're going to present this a little bit better. Just give us time. We're still figuring out, like, how to give it to you, to give it to the MPs. But all of these are what we lobby for.
Okay.
If you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Okay, Kathy, I was thinking of sending Scott Reed my submission that I did for the consultation on the cap. And I don't know whether that'll be confusing for him. If it's coming from me as a CCLer.
You know what? You got to do what you think is best for you and Scott. You've got a great relationship. It's almost 9 years down the road, and it might be great to get some feedback from a conservative on what he thinks, because maybe carbon pricing is a non-starter with him.
Well, I know that he supported Pierre Poilievre, like after Poilievre became the leader. Scott was saying, oh, he's a great guy, you know. But I don't know if he agrees with the policy of getting rid of the carbon tax and using technology to solve the climate crisis.
Well, maybe after he comes to this event and he'll change his mind. And okay, that's cool. All right, that's great. Any other questions? So you got to do what you think is best, Anita. We're not going to micromanage. You got to know what's best for you and your parliamentarian. Be interesting to get some conservative feedback on that cap, because carbon pricing might be a non-starter.
Yeah, I'm no longer in the conservative CCL group. I was for a while, but I don't know if they're making any progress with other conservative MPs.
No, not on carbon pricing. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. You know, ask him what he wants. Yeah. Yeah, sending him a copy. Yeah, it's worthwhile. Just go for it. Okay, I want to spend the last. Are there any questions? I want to spend the last 5 minutes pretend lobbying somebody. But let's review this. So we're going to need, okay, so lobbying is like anything. It has a beginning, you thank you, how much time do we have, appreciate, support and ask. In the middle, you do your exchange of thoughts, listening for values, finding common ground, motivational interviewing, and you're trying to move the parliamentarian forward. And that at the end, you clarify what's coming next, follow up plan for follow-up. Hopefully you get that second meeting, because then you know you've really succeeded, because this won't take one meeting. It'll take 5, 10, 15, 20 meetings. No, not 20. But anyways, a couple meetings at least. And thank them, and be sure to get a photo and thank them for their time. And the roles are lobby lead, liaison, appreciator, time monitor, note taker, discussion person, asker, deliverer, follow-up, photographer, and observer. So I'm going to pretend I am an NDP federal parliamentarian from Manitoba. And I would like to just role play a meeting. So who would like, if you'd like to be the appreciator, just like put appreciator in the chat. If you'd like to be the time monitor, that would be great. You just ask how much time there is. If you want to be the person who asks me for whatever, just put asker. And then then we'll just design a couple of, and who's the lobby lead? You're the person who makes sure everything happens. So we have lobby lead, appreciator, time monitor, the asker, and then everybody else will participate in the discussion. And you're going to lobby me for what? Should we go for CBAMs or what? Do you want to ask a couple questions about carbon border adjustments to a federal NDP person? Does that sound okay? Going at the speed of light here. Let me see what you got in the chat box.
Sure.
Okay, we're going for CBAMs. I'm
Great.
gonna see, all right. And then we'll see who took on what role. I'll see that. All right. Oh, Laura was first. She's the appreciator. Carrie's the time monitor. Okay, I need Kathy, that makes you the lobby lead. Who wants to ask me the question on CBAMs? I know you can do it. I know you can do it.
I put asker, but I have to.
Oh, you're the asker? Okay, yeah, you're the asker.
But,
Okay.
I gotta think. I don't know.
Asker? Okay, so all you're gonna say is like, so one of our lobbying asks, I'll put it up here. So one of our lobbying asks is to follow the European Union's lead in implementing carbon border adjustments by 2026. To prepare for CBAMs, Canada's carbon pricing policies must be harmonized in terms of price on carbon pollution, coverage, and transparency. So you're lobbying an NDP member of parliament. What sort of question? Just think of 2 questions now that we could ask him or her or them. Motivational interviewing questions, finding common ground questions.
Just what are your thoughts on?
That's a great starting point. That's a great starting point. What are your thoughts on it? That's a lovely. Yep. Okay. What are your thoughts on it? So somebody's going to ask me that. One other question.
Maybe try to get like personal, ask like how they think it would like affect them or their community.
That's a great idea. Okay. You're asking that question. All right. Okay. So we're going to just ad lib this. So we're going to be online. We're in a breakout room. I'm an NDP with Manitoban. And I'm I don't know. Do you want to give me just call MP Orlando? Oh, no. Whatever. Okay, we'll just go with that. And I'll welcome, so Kath, just you get her started because you're the lead. And Lori's the asker, and we have an appreciator, and we have an appreciator. That was Anita? No, Laura. Yeah, okay, let's get going.
Well, so as I understand the role of the lead, it's just to make sure that all the other roles are full. So done.
Done.
But I will say, hi, MP Orlando. It's great to meet you. We're here with Citizens Climate Lobby today. And these are my people. Well, maybe we'll start with introducing ourselves. Blah, blah, blah. I'm Kathy. I'm from Toronto Centre. Blah, blah, blah. This about me. I'm a terrific person. You should do everything I say. And over to Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita from Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston, and I'll be taking notes today.
Carrie, you go next.
We're going through all this?
Yeah, just go, just jump in.
Yeah, and should I, since I'm the time monitor, I'm wondering if I should like let everyone introduce themselves and do the appreciation first before asking for time, or is that like first thing as soon as we get in there?
Yeah,
then-
actually, the time monitor should always pretty much go right near the beginning because you want to know if you can like have, these touchy-feely sort of introductions.
Right.
Or
Good
the
point.
like, hi, my name is Kathy Orlando. I live in Sudbury. Done. Okay, keep going.
Okay. So my name is Carrie. I'm in Winnipeg, and I'm with CCL, and like Kathy said, we're a great group, and you should listen to everything we say. And may I ask, MP Orlando, how much time do you have to be able to spend with us today?
I only have 2 minutes because the meeting ends in 2 minutes, but do you all have an extra 5 minutes to go with this meeting?
Yes, of course.
Okay, sorry
Thank
for
you.
going over time. We've had great discussions. Okay, we have 7 minutes. 6 now. No, 7. Okay, go. Keep going. Keep introducing yourself. That means you have to go fast.
We're actually going through the introductions.
Yeah, just do it.
Okay.
Go fast. Maybe just.
Hi, I'm Lori from Winnipeg, and yeah, just glad to be here today.
Hi there, Laura Lindbergh. I'm here from Etobicoke in Ontario. Thanks for the time, MP Orlando.
Jump in.
Hi, I'm Dominic from Ottawa. Lovely to meet you.
Don't be shy. Just jump in.
Is everybody going?
I'm Kathy from Richmond. Great to meet you.
Hi, I'm Dawson from Lorette. It's very nice to meet you.
Who's the appreciator?
Okay. Did Emma introduce?
Just
Okay.
saying the appreciator should go last so they can just say some appreciating thing and then move on.
Okay. Time person goes near the beginning. Appreciator goes last. Okay. It's all right. No worries, Emma. You're listening, and that's even like awesome. Okay, Laura, appreciate me.
MP Orlando, we at Citizens Climate Lobby Canada, we are so grateful for your time today and so grateful for the work that your government has done, really partnering with and holding accountable our federal Liberals and helping to ensure that the climate income, which we have put in place, stays in place and can act to reduce and put a price on pollution. So we really appreciate that and thank you very much.
Okay.
I think
And
it's something personal, like thank you for participating in the Cherry Fox run.
yep, it's great. Okay. We only have 5 minutes left. Okay. So now the asker. So why are you here today? How can I help you?
Okay, so I don't have it in front of me, but so one of the requests we have as the lobby, Citizens Climate Lobby, is, of course, we're big on carbon fee and dividend, and one of the things that goes along with that very well is carbon border adjustment mechanisms, and because that will help us to really make a dent in our carbon emissions. And that would replace the OBPS system, right? That's, yeah, that would replace the OBPS system. That would, and we think it would really help reduce our emissions. So I'm just wondering what you think about the carbon border adjustment mechanisms for Canada.
Well, I think it makes sense. It will incentivize the rest of the world to price carbon pollution, which is totally necessary. And also, it looks like Republicans in the United States are also looking at border carbon adjustment mechanisms in preparation. So I think this is something we need to run out ahead of and make sure we're ready for. So thank you for that question.
I think we've done our job.
Okay, so you getting the idea?
Orlando,
Okay.
how can we help you to move this forward?
Yeah, so, there we go. How can we move this forward? Well, obviously, it's going to take building common ground, making sure everybody feels heard, making sure all the industries feel heard. Look for government engagement tools so that you can feed into that. Here locally in my constituency, the farming industry needs to be consulted. So I think that we need to listen very carefully to them. And I think you should too, because often people who live in the cities tend to forget who's actually feeding them. And their voices need to be heard and their concerns need to be addressed. So that's how I think you can help.
It's not very specific. Thanks.
How can I help you?
Well,
Would you sponsor a parliamentary petition?
No, because you got to ask your national director first, okay? Because they're a lot of work to get people to sign. And if you don't get at least 1,000 signatures, it's a bomb. Okay, good question, Anita. All right, 1 minute left. So I'm glad you're with us. Any last reflections before we leave? And I will stay an extra 5 minutes for those of you who are too shy to say it on the recording or in front of everyone else. But anyone want to say something before we go?
I just wonder, so far we haven't got any affirmative replies. So I guess if we don't get any, we just attend and yeah.
Yep, you can go into the breakout rooms and join other groups and just see how it's going and cheer them on. And yeah, it's a very busy time. Don't you have a provincial election in Manitoba as well right now? Are you one of the
No,
provinces?
mayoral.
Mayoral. Yep. Yeah. It's the subnet. It's the
Yeah,
municipal.
and my MLA's aide said they're working hard on that. I don't know why, but they are.
Because what happens at the municipal level really impacts.
Okay.
Okay, it's done. All right. I'm going to stop recording.